5/8 inch or 1 inch holes, or are both of them completely overrated? You don't even need that.
1/4 inch holes.
3/4 inch. American
there's
Barbell.
Bridgebuilt. Bridgebuilt does 3/4.
Yeah.
So does
Mike
American
Barker's Power
Barbell.
Center.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an itty bitty ecosystem. All right. So what this comes down to for me, so I had a 1-inch hardware squat stand, and then I was like, monster stuff is super expensive. I'm going to go 5/8. So I got a 5/8 inch power rack. And after years of using that 5/8 power rack, I said the 1-inch attachments are typically a little bit more expensive. However, these broken attachments over here also cost me money, and they are now bent, broken, or a pain in the ass to adjust. So when it comes to deciding which size is best for you, there's going to be a couple factors that I would say that you should consider. One is, how big of a space do you have? And do you have room to have dedicated standalone units to do different things? Because if that's the case, 5/8 inch might be great, because if you're just using your power rack to do bench and squat, and you're not looking to do any sort of like leg roller attachments. And the reason, again, I just did a video on this, and the reason I bring up leg rollers is because if you ever put a 5/8 inch rod leg roller, which I made one, I think Kyle made one too at one point.
Probably.
Bent the living crap out of it because 5/8 inch, just when it comes to making a lever that's that long, it's not that strong. It's and that steel isn't exactly a high tensile strength steel. It's not looking to bend and then come back to its normal shape. So if you don't have a big space like me, I'm on a 12 by 20. A 1-inch might make a lot more sense because the ecosystem that's developed for it is higher quality materials, plus that 1-inch pin is just stronger. And again, I want to be clear here. The strongest man or woman in the world can squat and fail on 5/8 inch hardware, and they will be fine. They're not going to die. 5/8 inch is not going to cause it to come crashing down. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the ease of putting an attachment on, the quality of those attachments, because they tend to be the flagship line of those companies, and just the durability of the pin. Because like I said, I've bent the living hell out of some 5/8 inch attachments before. They just tend to be higher quality on that 1-inch. So in my opinion, if you're on the fence and you're like, hey, like I could go either way on this, I would ask you to look at your space and ask yourself whether you want to use standalone units, to where you don't need to put attachments on. And if that's the case, maybe 5/8. And if you don't do that, then go 1-inch. I'll leave the rest of that, but yeah, I'm never going back to 5/8. I just took apart a 5/8 inch, a couple of 5/8 inch power racks, and I thought it was real cute how little those bolts were.
That's funny. Who else got something?
That's a tough to follow.
That is tough to follow.
Mike, come on, Mike. I left your point. We had to. So for the audience, we had to actually shut up because we got into it. I was punching the wall. Mike was crying. I don't even want to get into that.
I got very sentimental.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, Jake was canceling me. Yeah.
This has happened on a handful of the podcasts that I've been on with Jake, where the pre-recording gets going and Jake will be like, shut up, I haven't hit record yet. This is good stuff. Yeah, I mean, so this question, I knew that this question originated from, what's a common statement or theme in the home gym community that you disagree with. And so I crowdsourced this with some friends on the Discord, and somebody brought up that, I disagree with that 5/8 inch racks are suitable for 95% of people. And I thought that was interesting. So I brought it up and we got on the topic. And so we turned it into this, whatever you want to call it, this part of the this segment. There it is. There's the proper term. This segment of the podcast. So I've only ever owned a 1-inch power rack, and that came after doing a ton of research. Listening to, all of the guys in the space. Adam, Brandon, even Kurt. I went from my DIY squat stand that I, drilled 3/4, half-inch holes, I don't even remember, into 4x4s, right? So I sat on that thing and used it for over a year before I YOLO'd my RM3. But after you've had it and you look at the 5-inch, as you said, Curtis, like you see the size of the bolts. I've got some 5/8 inch attachments that I've used with some of my DIY pieces. There's the functionality. And so for me, my rack is the centerpiece. I thought you called that a really good point, Kurt, that for me, my rack is the centerpiece of my home gym, right? Everything operates from there. I don't have other machines, leg curl, leg extension, that kind of stuff. So I could see there being an argument for, hey, yeah, it makes sense to go 5/8 if you've got the space and the resources to buy a bunch of other equipment. But for me, I need to be able to attach it to my rack if I'm going to be doing anything else and getting creative in the home gym. And I just personally think that aesthetically, it just looks better to have 1-inch holes all the way around that 3x3 upright and cross members. Again, I already talked about it in the beginning. I'm a flush top elitist, and you only get those flush mount top cross members on 1-inch racks. I will say that it was really cool when Rep decided to go 5/8 inch holes all the way around on their uprights and cross members. That was a good move by them. That's another downside with most 5/8 inch racks, is that on your uprights, the inside holes don't follow the same spacing. I don't know what the spacing is, but it's really strange.
6 inches.
6 inches, right? Okay, so I don't know how I would. I use the holes on my uprights and cross members like crazy. So without that type of versatility, it would be bad. But I'm also coming from a place where all I've had is 1-inch. So I'm a 1-inch / flush top elitist, but I do think that for me, at least, 1-inch is the way to go. And the cost difference is getting smaller. We already talked about it. You can get into a Titan Series 1-inch rack for as much as a Rogue 5/8 inch rack. So there's that.
Boys, I got 3 words for you. West side hole spacing.
Mr. One Set of J Cup.
Say what?
Mic drop.
Yeah, I get it. It does. So I'm looking at what is behind Jake with the surplus. It does. It looks commercial grade. It looks amazing, beefy. I'd say though, but the versatility of the 5/8 hole spacing, particularly through the bench press area for those racks that do have that, is by far and away my favorite. For 95% of home gym owners who are not lifting like a freaking elephant and not lifting 1,000 pounds like myself, I think it's more than enough. I do agree, however, with Kurt that I've got the Titan X3 and the 5/8 rod that goes through that thing. It's bendy. If I had a 1-inch rod going through those holes, I'd feel a little bit better about it. So if I'm doing rack pulls, I'm probably not using those. I'm probably using straps to do rack pulls. But I really like that was the main reason I went with that, is because of the west side hole spacing, which just simply isn't offered. Although honestly, with a bench press arch and like lifting your chest up, I'm not sure if that's as important. And as I've learned through training, like creating that, the spacing on the bench press area becomes less and less important for me, because I can arch a couple of inches and make that. If I had a 1-inch hole rack, I could make that difference through the bench press area more easily than I could when I first started. But I'd say for a beginner and for most people, 5/8 it's my jam. What do you got there?
Curtis has got show and tell.
This is a J Cup. This is a version 1 surplus strength J Cup. Solid, 1-inch, beautiful, even tastes yummy. All right, so west side hole spacing is it's genius marketing. And it's really interesting because I made this point that I just think it's genius marketing. And I'll get to the J Cup in a sec. But someone actually sent me, they made their own 1-inch rack and they did west side hole spacing. But it wasn't technically west side because it wasn't 1 inch on center, or 1 inch spacing throughout rather. But they did it. They actually did do a close bench area out of 1 inch. So I thought that was interesting. So something that maybe someone might do someday for people that love west side hole spacing. But I think it's just marketing because with the J Cup, especially for the bench press, because that's what it's for, right? And if you think about west side, you have a bunch of absolutely completely natural athletes that are just gifted from God, and they're lifting amazing weights. And again, I'm not taking away from the things that they've accomplished because the discipline required to actually get strong on steroids is still insane. They're on steroids because they can't recover like a normal human being, so they have to do stuff, which is super cool. But
Wait, they're on
there's
steroids?
like other, you could like hit up here and re-rack the bar, or like I just fail to see where 1 inch hole spacing. So like if you pick the bar up from here versus there.
Oh, no.
I-
No, sorry. I'm talking about the rod spacing at your chest level. So it allows you
for
to,
safeties.
Yeah, you're talking about safeties. Okay.
That was
Oh,
super
interesting.
important.
Gotcha.
Most people-
I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about unracking the bar, and I was like, I
No.
don't get that.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense.
Now, so that's interesting too, because Rep makes J cups that have like the 1 inch
Right.
difference, right? So you can drop it an inch. I'd be curious to see if anybody ever makes a safety that can do that.
I mean, isn't the
somebody make a
argument
safety?
for the unrack have to do with like if you're having to lift the bar further, then you're kind of bleeding power, right? That you could typically transfer into your press. Again, I'm 1 inch here,
How much are those people lifting now?
hey, I'm on your side, man. I get it. But I think that's where the argument, like I saw it, but that problem was solved by just having two sets of J cups, and they, you can hit the same hole and have them sit at different levels and find your right, lift off preference. But I guess I can see that argument being made. If you're going for big lifts like you just talked about, like the guys at Westside are doing, then a 1 inch versus 2 inch lift off you're gonna lose some power when you're pressing 800 pounds off your chest. Yep. So it makes sense.
Every little bit.
I will say to that point though, the competitive lifters aren't going to be lifting on power rack anyway. They're going to be lifting on a competition rack, which does have micro increment adjustments, and so for when every inch matters, they're going to be lifting outside the rack anyway. So
yeah.
I totally get it though. And there's a lot of people that, the west side hole spacing, the biggest thing I got with that is I lived with my wife and apparently her arms are 1 inch shorter or 3 inches shorter or some oddball shorter. My frustration with west side hole spacing, especially with a lot of the 5/8 inch line racks, and there's companies that are fixing this, remedying this, is that because most of them used to not come with laser cut holes, having west side hole spacing was either like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
They weren't numbered?
Like your J cups were off. Oh yeah, they weren't numbered before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My rack's not numbered, so.
mine's not either.
You got masking tape all over it?
Oh, Jake, I think you posted this a while ago. Somebody did, this is going to sound crazy, but it was so